Good morning, folks, and welcome to this week's edition of Webinar Wednesday. Before we get started today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we all work and live, seeing as some of us are at home, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. Folks, thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to be joined by Sebastian and Turkan from the Welcoming Cities program and Boris from the City of Canning in WA. We're going to cover a couple of topics today. First of all, just a little bit of background and talking about Welcoming Cities. I think some of you probably already know about the program, but I thought it'd be really good to get Turkan and Sebastian along to expand on that and talk about a few topics that we might try and cover over the rest of the year. And then Boris is here to talk about the business mentoring program that the City of Canning has run in conjunction with the Welcoming Cities Group. All right, that's it from me. I don't really have much else to add. If you have any questions or comments during the course of the presentation, folks, please just drop them into the chat. And we'll, depending on how we're going for time, presenters might cover them as we go, but we'll probably just hold them all till the end, and then we can do a little Q&A at the end. So yeah, as we're going, just pop them in the chat, and I'll come back to you at the end of the presentations, and we can discuss everything then. All right, folks, that's pretty much it from me. Sebastian, Turkan, it's over to you.
Thanks so much, Aaron. I'd also like to acknowledge. Oh, sorry, that's better. Acknowledge the traditional owners on which I am on. I'm on the Pemerang and the Kaurna lands in Adelaide. And I've also got Turkan. I should introduce Turkan at this point as well. You can see her smiling face there. She's the New South Wales coordinator for Welcoming Cities, and probably known to all of you. I think she knows everyone in New South Wales. And obviously this is a webinar, so as Aaron mentioned, there's people based all over New South Wales here, so I'd like to pay my respects to everyone and the lands on which you're on as well. And to all of you here today, hello and thank you so much for joining us. As Aaron already mentioned, this is a sort of a busy time of year between lockdowns and school holidays and the end of financial year. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy world and your busy life. If your school holidays are anything like mine, this is no small feat. So Welcoming Cities started just over 5 years ago, and I'll just provide a brief bit of context on Welcoming Cities and the why behind what we do before moving into the broader story of Welcoming Cities. So we live in a world of complex systems, interactions, movements of people, information, data, goods and services. And this complexity, both within and across borders, is scaling rapidly. Globally, and I must admit these are pre-COVID figures, but 250 million people live and work outside of the country of their birth. And when it comes to movement of people and settling people well, whether they arrive for work or to study or for family reunification or indeed safety, Australia has long held this as a nation building philosophy, settling people well. And within this complexity and perhaps because of it, we're also witnessing deeper polarization and division, especially within politics, media and public debate. But over the next 35 years, it's anticipated that migration will maintain a sustainable population growth and help drive economic and skills growth, contributing approximately $1.6 trillion to Australia's GDP. However, there are some tensions and divides. The benefits of migration and cultural diversity and social cohesion and economic participation are not being enjoyed by everyone. And this is also the same in population and economic distribution. Communities are grappling with one of two quite disparate issues. There's rapid growth and urbanisation, and you can see on this map, the blue represents that. And they're trying to advance social cohesion and economic participation in a world of growing cultural diversity. And then in yellow and orange, the population and stagnation and economic and decline. And that's approximately 45% of local governments. And this is the challenge of attracting and retaining migrants and newcomers. And this story is perhaps even more acute in New South Wales. So here, the top graph is Queensland and the bottom is New South Wales. And I want you to pay attention to the orange line here. So that is net interstate migration. And so that shows in New South Wales that there's actually more people leaving New South Wales to travel interstate than there are arriving from other states. And this is very different to the picture in Queensland and Melbourne. It's much more similar to where I am in South Australia. And so this means that places like Sydney, particularly in New South Wales, are actually getting increasingly diverse because they're relying on overseas migration to boost the population. And while diversity is our reality in a nation where 50% of Australians are born or have a parent who is born overseas, and more than 20% of households speak a language other than English, we would suggest that our difference doesn't make us Australian, but our willingness to embrace difference does. We need to translate that conversation about diversity into the choice of inclusion. Social and economic participation doesn't exist or advance simply because we are diverse. Social cohesion and economic partition exist because of a choice. And that choice is to include people in all aspects of community life. And inclusion, done well, requires more than just intent. It requires collaboration and partnership. It requires clear frameworks, expertise, and ways of working and ongoing support. Now, the enemy of addressing these challenges is working in silos and isolation. So consequently, one of our core values is partnership and relationships. We avoid competition and duplication and working in silos, and instead we pursue a coordinated whole of community and place-based approaches, bringing together community members, organisations, businesses, government and service to identify and develop and deliver local solutions to local problems. But this also doesn't happen by itself. It often requires a neutral facilitator and broker. And of all tiers of local government, local councils are the ones that actually understand their communities. People live in local government, and I'm not telling you anything new here. And local governments are the ones that understand the nuance and the complexity of their communities. You engage with local businesses regularly, local residents and service providers on a daily basis. Consequently, you're in an excellent position to bring all of the stakeholders to the table. You're the trusted third party in this case. Which is why it's so important and that you receive the support and resources to play that role well. On to welcoming cities. Our intent is to keep growing this network and the reach to ensure that local councils, as our members, are realising the benefits of being part of the Welcoming Cities network, and that these benefits are translated both internally into your council and also externally into the community. We exist to be responsive to your needs. So whether that's helping to address policy and practice gaps, connecting you with other councils or suppliers or community agencies that can help you with it to advance your work, documenting case studies and sharing resources and celebrating the work that you're leading, and supporting you through, if you want to, the benchmarking and accreditation process. So the Welcoming Cities Standard is a core element of the Welcoming Cities initiative. It's a critical tool to ensuring the retention of people in communities and embedding welcoming and inclusion practices. So we embed the standard and accreditation as part of our work because we recognise the critical importance of planning, benchmarking, and improvement to advance social cohesion and economic participation, and ultimately informing a sense of belonging. The intention is not to create more work for local governments, and in fact, it's exactly the opposite. But accreditation and standards allow a council to increase the impact of local initiatives on the whole of community, provide a mechanism to plan for learning and improvement and change, develop a positive and welcoming reputation, and assess progress over time. What we know about social cohesion is that it's the #1 indicator of community resilience. Communities respond and recover from change, challenging circumstances, and disaster when social cohesion is high. Some of the indicators look at internal practices, and others consider council's role as a facilitator and broker in the community. It's a comprehensive, holistic view, and it's a living document that we'll continue to update. If councils choose to go through the accreditation process, there's an accreditation portal. It's easy to upload evidence and make notes against current council practice. Another core element of the Welcoming Cities initiative is knowledge sharing. And so this year we've released, and we're very excited to have literally just received the printed copies of them, putting out the Welcome Map. It's a selection of case studies, ideas, and examples that showcase the great work that our members do, and it also brings the Welcoming Cities standard to life. Putting out the Welcome Map has excellent thud value, as our designer calls it. It's 96 pages with 15 case studies, 185 ideas, and 81 examples, all drawn from our members. And this builds on previous case study work with Stories of Welcome Volume 1 and Volume 2. And just briefly, before I hand over to Boris, I'd like to just mention the Welcoming Clubs initiative, and perhaps this is something that we can explore at a later date as well. But building on the success of the Welcoming Cities initiative and recognising the role and power of sport as in the settlement process and also, in the community building process. We've developed Welcoming Clubs, which builds from the success of Welcoming Cities. There's a Welcoming Clubs standard, and it allows both social clubs, but also codes to benchmark what their current process is, current practice is, and build on that over time. But obviously, local councils own a lot of the assets that these clubs use, and they facilitate that work. And so what we're seeing in a number of local councils is their capacity and interest in supporting their clubs to do better in terms of inclusion. So currently there are 60 local councils who are members of the Welcoming Cities network across Australia. There's 13 of those that are in New South Wales. Our members are a real mix. There's capital cities, including Sydney, Hobart, Melbourne, Canberra, and Brisbane. There's urban fringe and inner city councils such as Parramatta, Blacktown, Waverley, large regional centres such as Wagga Wagga and Toowoomba, and rural communities such as Leeton, Boulogne Shire, and Murray Bridge. But this number's growing quickly. We've added 4 new members just in the last month. We're also part of an international movement of 250 municipalities across the world called Welcoming International. And I'd just like to, again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for listening to this work. Thank you for being involved and for benchmarking and accreditation and thinking about your own work in this space. It's really important, and that's how we make this work better. But that's enough from me. I'm really happy to answer questions at the end, obviously. But rather than to continue to bang on about Welcoming Cities and the work we do, we thought the best thing to do would actually be to invite one of our members along to speak about their work. So I'm delighted to have Boris Wong with us from the City of Canning. So the City of Canning's business mentoring program was featured in putting out the Welcome Map. And without taking up any more time, I'll hand straight over to Boris.
Thank you, Sebastian, for that. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. All right. So before I begin, can I just acknowledge the traditional owners on the land of which I am on at the moment, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. So my colleague Danielle Reeby is not with me today. She's actually a bit unwell, but she actually looks after our business mentoring program. And I think throughout this presentation, what you'll find is that there's a clear alignment to the ethos and the principles that Welcoming Cities have laid out. And I'm pretty delighted to be kind of working for a local government such as the City of Canning that has, welcoming as part of its vision. So, and as an economic development or business development professional, can I just say it's probably one of the best visions for me to kind of work with. And it's really reflective of the City of Canning's community as well. So before I kick off and talk about the mentoring program, I thought it'd be prudent to give you a good understanding of why our vision is a welcoming and thriving city and who we are at the City of Canning. So I've got a snapshot of some stats there that talk about the City of Canning. So we're pretty much a local government municipality that's within the southeast corridor in WA. We're about sort of 20 minutes away from most of the major infrastructure. So the CBD, the Perth CBD, the port, which is in Fremantle, and the airport as well. We've got the third largest GRP in Perth, fourth in WA, around about $12 billion. We've got nearly 100,000 residents, and we're the most culturally diverse LGA in WA. About 50% of our residents are born overseas. We've got nearly 80,000 jobs. We actually have more jobs than working residents. So we actually have a lot of people who come into the city to work, and that's driven through our two large industrial areas in Canning Vale and Welshpool. And with that, we also have about 10,000 local businesses, and 97% are small. And we are also the most economically diverse local government in WA as well. I've yet to do any more research on the correlation between the cultural diversity and the economic diversity. However, I do feel that there's something to be explored in that space as well. So we are driven by our business development framework, and there are three pillars to that business development framework. And some of the words on the screen there probably sound quite familiar to what Sebastian's just mentioned. Our three pillars are access, influence, and knowledge. And we frame these around really kind of simple aspirational statements like we will welcome businesses, we will broker connections between businesses, for example. We will identify areas where we can participate and build stronger businesses. We will identify services that we can provide, so on and so forth. So about the mentoring program itself. So the Canning Business Mentoring Program is our flagship program that we deliver as part of the Business Development Unit at the City of Canning. It's become part of our core service delivery. And in that program, we provide a full scholarship to some of WA's best practice mentoring programs. Our program providers are screened rigorously, and whilst we contract them to deliver, we view them as partners because of all the additional kind of benefits that they provide to the businesses that they mentor as well. So they actually mentor the businesses, but also they bring them into their own networks as well. Some programs that we've delivered also focus on specific industries which are relevant to the region. For us, food and beverage is a really relevant one, and we're talking about the full cycle there from manufacturing, production to retail. But also we ask our partners to address, our partners who deliver the program to address kind of some of the broader social issues that we see as well, like mental health and well-being for small businesses. That is a core component of what each of our partners have to do as part of their program as well. So this program's been running for about 5 years. We've seen year-on-year growth in both the programs on offer and the number of applicants that apply to the program. Some of our alumni have gone on to achieve pretty incredible things. Like I think last year, in the year of COVID, we've had one of our mentees or alumni secure about 500,000 in pre-seed funding, investment funding. They've won awards, like we've got a pretty big one here called the 40 Under 40. Some of them have gone on to win sustainability awards, such as Switch Your Thinking. And importantly for us, these businesses have become invested in the community, and they are always looking for avenues to give back. At the heart of COVID, we had one of the food businesses that we put through make a massive donation to the local soup kitchen. We've got a female business owner who's really passionate about inspiring entrepreneurship amongst female businesses, and she's partnered with us to deliver a Women in Business forum as well. I'll just provide a little bit more detail about the program itself. I'll start with our first 2 tiers of the program, which is Start and Sprint. The entire program is structured as a bit of a ladder to kind of climb. So we've got 4 tiers: Start, Sprint, Surge, and Sustain. Applicants can apply to multiple programs, but are only given access to 1 program a year. They are more than welcome to apply in the following year to progress to a different program. The start level, as the name suggests, is targeted at early stage entrepreneurs that are either at ideation stage or have just commenced their business. And for that program, we've got 2 programs within the start tier. The Curtin Ignition program, that's a 5.5-day bootcamp style intensive program, probably the most renowned in WA, and it really rallies the local startup ecosystem. Young Gems, we were fortunate enough to have Young Gems featured in that Welcoming Cities publication. Is targeted at our culturally and linguistically diverse community, and it provides an entry-level pathway to engage with the city, where we're hoping that they gain further confidence and then can re-engage at the other tiers as they progress in their business as well. And at the Sprint tier, we've got the +8 Sprint program, which has really taken off over the last couple of years. This program is really about gaining scale and traction once you've kind of started establishing yourself in the market. Then we move on to the Surge and Sustain tiers. The Surge program is one where it's more about expansion into new markets nationally and internationally. And this is one program that can be tailored to be industry specific. We also find that in the Surge program, the contractor that we use is really focused on building sort of cultural awareness so that these businesses can start to look to trade and export internationally as well. So this program is probably targeted around businesses around the 3 to 5 year mark. This is probably our most prestigious program, the Surge program, because there's just not that many on offer in WA at the moment. And the final tier we have is Sustain. So this is really more about collaboration and networking, and mentees having a monthly opportunity to engage with sort of their peers and industry experts that assist them in sustaining and growing their business. So through the mentoring program, we aim to walk shoulder to shoulder with our business community in their journey of growth. As a local government, there are limitations to what we can do, but as we allude to in our framework, we aim to kind of broker the connections and assist businesses to find their own way. And as our business unit kind of sits within the Canning Community Directorate, so kind of a little bit different than a lot of other LGAs where economic development sits within planning, our Economic and Business Development team actually sits within our community directorate. We promote the mentoring program as part of like our lifelong learning initiatives, where we deem business as a creative outlet. We utilize a lot of our flexible and safe spaces within the city, such as like our libraries. A lot of the mentoring programs are delivered out of our libraries. And of course, delivered through partnerships that we build with our providers as well. So for us, the ultimate importance of business is huge for the City of Canning. And we're always advocating that there's no divide between the business community and the community itself. For us, they're deemed as one and the same. And that's how we endeavor to treat them. Thank you. That's it from me. Happy to take any questions. Just stop sharing.
Cheers, Boris. Thank you. Dee at North Sydney, you had a question for Boris about the program. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, that'd be great. Okay, so Dee was, here we go.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. No, so like the programs there, you've got Boris, like what are the costs associated? I would assume that would be quite costly.
They range from about 3.5K to about 4K per mentee for each program. It's a sizable cost, but the justification for us is that we've reduced the number of one-to-many programs that we deliver. So, for example, more of our workshop style that we deliver, and we prefer this approach because it's sort of quality over quantity, and that's why we've opted to go with this program.
Oh, look, I think the program's unreal. It's fantastic, but like my budget's 20 grand a year, so we tend to use or outsource it and to like places like NetStripes and the rest of them that we all use, because it's just because the money's not there. So what would your budget be, Boris, like overall for everything?
So for the mentoring program, we've got about 70K for the mentoring program.
But you're saying that it costs up to 250,000, so I'm a bit confused.
Oh, about 3,500 to 4,000 per mentee.
Per mentee, and how many mentees go through the program per year?
We've got up to 20 for this year.
Okay.
So it varies. It depends. Sometimes when we purchase, like for example, the +8 sprint program, we purchase the entire program, up to 15 slots for that program. Obviously, because we purchased the entire program, it works out to be a cheaper rate for mentees. So but if you're paying, it's about.
Has this replaced a previous? So what you're saying, this mentoring program has replaced what you used to like do before, lots of little programs.
Correct.
Okay, and so you
lots of workshop style programs, just one targeting like marketing workshop, for example.
Sure.
Replace that.
Yeah. That will look. It's great, and I think that's a great model. It's just that most of us don't have that money to be able to spend. Yeah.
For us, unlocking some of the cash to deliver this mentoring program came down to us sort of finessing some stats a little bit. So we had to look at what sort of rate base we had, and we found out that because we've got such a diverse and strong local economy, about 45% of our rate revenue came from businesses, and that gave the justification to further invest in their growth.
And is it open to businesses only in your LGA? Because you said you have a lot of people that don't live in your LGA, but they come into work, which is very similar to North Sydney.
So you have to either live within our LGA or be a business owner or operator within the LGA.
Okay. So okay. Thanks.
No worries.
Thanks, Dee. Tanya Katsanis, you had a couple of questions as well.
Good morning. Thanks for your presentation. It was very interesting. I had two questions, Boris. The first question is, how long do the mentoring programs last? And do your mentees get any one-on-one sessions?
So the first question, how long do they last? They range from that boot camp style, which is 5.5 days. That's the only one like that. The rest of them range from about 6 to 12 weeks. Do they have one-on-one sessions? Yes, they do. That's all part of the program. So they do one-on-one sessions with the program providers. They do kind of come back for group sessions most of the time, but they definitely do have one-on-one sessions.
Can I ask, sorry, your provider, are you able to disclose who they are?
Yeah, happy to.
Yep.
So for Young Gems, we are delivering that with Gemstar Technologies. I understand we just opened in Queensland as well. Curtin University, obviously for the Ignition program.
Yep.
+8 or Space Cubed for the +8 sprint. SME Surge is delivered by Agility Shift, and the Leaders program is delivered by WA Leaders. I believe they've got a chapter in New South Wales as well.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Tanya. Russell from Northern Beaches, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. And thanks, Boris and Seb. That was really good. The question I have is, obviously these programs are really focused in on category 3 in the standard. And I was just wondering if Canning's doing any other programs that are aligned to the other categories in the standard to complement it.
Are you talking about the accreditation for welcoming cities?
Yeah, or just, so you've obviously focused in on the economic component, and whether you at council you'd broaden that out if there was other teams in council looking at the other categories and programs aligned to those, or.
I think there is, not necessarily under my sort of direct jurisdiction, but certainly within the members within the Canning Community Directorate, it has been a focus for us. I think we're still going through the accreditation. I'm not too across that, to be honest, but yeah, I don't think we've got any accreditation as yet.
I'm happy to jump in here, Boris, as well. So I think yes, you're right. We've absolutely decided for this webinar to focus in just on one program. We could spend, a whole day delving into the different bits of work that the City of Canning is doing, which I'd be interested in, but you probably have other things to do with your day. I think what's really fascinating in Canning is, and Boris has mentioned this already, is where the economic development team sits within council. That sort of connection between community development and economic development is super strong. I can say for sure that there's lots of other bits of work going on. So normally for us, in terms of how people move and engage with the standard, is there's a few different ways it works, but predominantly people sort of spend some time looking over the standard and saying, oh, yeah, we're doing that, tick, 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 that's all stuff that we're doing really well. And then, would come to a bit and go, oh, whoops, haven't ever considered doing that. Or yeah, that's a spot that we know we should be doing more in. And it's good to have that sort of listed out and clear. Occasionally people sort of have assumed that they're doing work and then find out that they're not. In other councils, and this isn't the case in Canning, it's often a good chance for people to look to sort of build a stronger connection between the community development department and the economic development one, and also, places and spaces and others as well. So Canning is certainly doing a lot more work, and they're certainly looking at their work against the standard, but they're yet to sort of move through that more formalized accreditation process.
Yeah, thanks. That's good. And I guess, I'm new to Welcoming Cities, and we sort of heard about it a week ago. And one of the things I can see is a real benefit of the standard and the approach is the holistic understanding of, what a welcoming and inclusive place looks like. And so, yeah, I'm interested from a social planning point of view about, how you can consider multiple programs that achieve, multiple outcomes or different outcomes within the same. And looking at the standard from the point of view of not even having to go down that accreditation path, there's elements of it that you can just pick up and run with. And yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, totally, Russell. That's the whole point of the standard. I mean, it should be a useful document to use and think about things through as a lens without having to go down that sort of formalized accreditation path. And I think to your other point of should we, it's important, I suppose. I think the cultural diversity work can often sort of get left in the community development team. But what we know is that, as I posted above, at least a third of all small business owners are, from migrant backgrounds. And so you can't just leave it there. And in fact, lots of economic development teams are doing really excellent work in this space because they have to, like you can't not do good work with migrants if you're in economic development. It's just not really a choice.
If I may add, Seb, is also it's to bring out the deliverables just out of your economic development or your community services team. It's to have a whole of council response. Council has their 4 and 10-year deliverables. Much of our accreditation items are aligned with a lot of those deliverables. We want to make sure that if you're going along this journey, that the whole council is responsible and responsive to your diverse cohort, not just the communities that you serve outward facing, but also your inward facing staff members as well. How are they being taken along this journey and what kind of valuable contributions they can also make to the story?
Yeah, that sounds great. That's exactly the way I'd want to look at it. And then it's just considering, I guess, how big a commitment, time and resource and energy that looks like. And that's probably why Canning is, picking off the bits that they want to focus on and have energy and resources to do. Just another question, just a really quick one. So Boris mentioned in his presentation that the LGA has more than 50%, very diverse population, more than 50% people born out of the area. So what, in terms of the other councils across Australia that are signed up, I think you said there were 60. Are they similar? Are they the more ethnically diverse, multiculturally diverse LGAs?
It's a real mixed bag, Russell. That's not, I can't say, this is how councils are. I think, there's about a third of our councils are sort of genuine regional councils. And so lots of those are actually probably less diverse. So somewhere like Leeton perhaps, or certainly in Balonne Shire in Queensland, so southwest Queensland, it's not a super diverse location, but what they're interested in is how to recruit and retain migrants to fill their positions. So in Balonne, I think there's 50 jobs in sort of a council area of less than 3,000 people that are unfilled and that they've been vacant for some time. So for them, that's part of their interest in welcoming cities, is how they can sort of build and maintain this sort of, welcoming culture in their community. There's absolutely towns like Canning and, in Victoria, I think of Hume and Wyndham, where they're, essentially building a classroom of kids every week because of migration and how many young families are moving into that area. But then there's other councils as well who are, and this is something that's interesting about the Chinese diaspora settlement pattern, is that they're settling into places that are not that are sort of not traditionally used to receiving migrants, I suppose. So some of the sort of leafy eastern suburbs of our cities have a sort of new challenge or something new to think about, and so they're becoming members for that reason. And so I suppose it's such a broad spectrum, and we try and support our councils in each of those sort of diverse groups as we can.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
If I may add, in New South Wales alone, we saw just in the last 12 months, 43,000 people leave metropolitan areas into regional spaces. Before we could sort of project and foresee where people were coming into our LGAs, whereas now the impacts and the variables that are at play are very diverse and unique. So getting ready and being prepared to whoever may want to live, work or visit your LGA is a resilient process in itself. So it's great to incorporate inclusion and diversity practices in all aspects of council, so that way you're prepared.
Excellent, thank you. All right, folks, we're kind of nearly there for time. That went really fast, which means that we probably just need to book another webinar and talk about some more stuff. All right, friends, folks, do any of you have any more questions? Any other comments you'd like to make to our panel today? I'll take that as a no. Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Sebastian, Turkhan, and Boris, thank you all again for your time. Really interesting in the Welcoming Cities program and how the business development team of the City of Canning is maximising some of the standard and working with their community to grow small business and grow small business within the multicultural community in the City of Canning is really fascinating, and I'm very grateful for you giving up your time today to come and talk to us about it. Folks in the audience, thank you all. I know we have a lot on. It is end of financial year, as Sebastian pointed out, and also school holidays. And some of us are at home with our kids, which we probably weren't really expecting. I'm just home with four-legged screaming animals. That's all I've got. So my job's pretty easy. That's it then for today. Thank you all very much. We will be back in a fortnight's time. Without double checking, I'm pretty sure that our next presenter will be Faye Callerone from Hall & Wilcox, who is coming to talk to us about some workplace relations activities and some stuff that's been happening with Hall & Wilcox and legislative change and what have you that impacts local government. But that's it from us today. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and I'll probably see some of you again really soon. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Sebastian.